Psychology of People formula. Robin is just an exceptional guy. He's amazing. He has now become a good friend. But Robin has been an ex-FBI special agent. He has been basically the chief of the counterintelligence behavioral analysis program at FBI. And I have not really met too many people who are as lively, as smart, and as charming as Robin. So with that, Robin, I'll sort of invite you to take the stage and really sort of tell us as to what you really have written new book on this part and sizing people up. So that's the topic. And with that, welcome, Robin Dreeke.
I hope everyone's doing really well. I want to thank the whole group that have me back in. I love sharing my content. And so let's just hit right to it. So let's go next slide, if you could, please. So let me go through our time together. And I'm going to go through my background because I really think it's important to kind of share with you all where everything like this came from. I'm going to give you an overview of personality assessment. It's actually pretty simple. I'm going to give you an understanding of behavior prediction because, believe it or not, human beings are exceptionally easy to predict because ultimately each of us is always going to act in our own best interest in terms of safety, security, and prosperity. All you got to do is figure out what the other person thinks that is, and you now know what they're going to do. And so applying this to the holiday season, cake, because everyone is going to be acting in their own best interest for their families and themselves. And so all we got to do is figure out what they think that is and offer them resources, and it's going to be fine. We're going to go through my latest book, as Ian mentioned, was Sizing People Up, and which is actually, some people like to say it's about trust prediction, but it's actually really about behavior prediction. Because if I can reasonably predict what someone's going to do, I can really manage my expectations, and that the whole heart of it is understanding what people are doing at a deep fundamental level. So I understand them as human beings, because when you understand other people really deeply, you form those great, healthy, strong relationships, because ultimately in life, that's what it comes down to, is your ability to form trust in healthy, strong relationships. And we're going to go into that. I'm going to talk briefly about the dangers of gut feelings that we sometimes get and how they can be really kind of subjective, and how we can overcome using that and maintain cognitive thought throughout these things. Then I'm going to really dive into the 6 signs of behavior prediction, and they're all observable behaviors. Some are going to be able to, you can tell really rapidly. Others you might take a little bit more time, but I'm going to go through some of the tells you can get and watch for others so you can hopefully reasonably predict what they're going to do. And then I'm going to talk about, because my most common question I probably get is, Robin, I only have a few minutes to interact with someone. It's a quick quid pro quo kind of meeting, whether it's via Zoom or on a phone or anything else. What can I do really rapidly to read someone? And I'm going to go through that. It's actually not all that difficult. And here's the great thing. I guarantee you, everyone's been doing all these things already throughout their entire lives. I'm going to give you what I call the green tundra effect. Green Tundra, yes, I have a Toyota Green Tundra, and it's a make and model. We've all experienced it. When you buy a new car, all of a sudden you start seeing that same make and model everywhere. And so you don't even have to try. So I'm going to give you some labels and meanings so you can recognize it. And that's what we're going to do in speed reading. And then I'm going to sum it all up with our key takeaways. Next slide. All right, so give it a little click and we should hit it. So my background is very simply, I'm a United States Naval Academy graduate. Barely got in, barely got out. My son's there now. I suffer proud parent syndrome, so I do talk about my kids a bit, but I'll keep it brief. So I went to the Naval Academy. After Naval Academy, I went into the Marine Corps. From the Marine Corps, I came in the FBI in 1997, and my entire career was working counterintelligence. And I started out in New York City, and my job was very plainly, my job was to recruit spies, which is legitimately the toughest sales job you can have on the planet, because here's why. My product I was selling was a service, and my service was, it was air. It was actually, I was selling American patriotism, and my only potential clients were foreign nationals that worked at the United Nations that were diplomats from other countries, and specifically, I worked Russia for most of my career. So what do you think the likelihood my only potential clients wanted to buy my product? Pretty slim to none. The next challenge was, by treaty, it was actually illegal for me to walk up and approach and try to sell my product to one of these individuals. So that's a challenge. So I have this product that they generally don't want to buy. And the next challenge is I can't even talk to my potential client. And so how do you do this? Well, it's really pretty simple. recruiting a spy or selling a product, it's the same thing. It's understanding the priorities of others and offering them resources in terms of what's important to them. In other words, that safety, security, and prosperity. And so if I could identify which potential client wanted my product because they wanted their children to grow up in a different country with a better education system, maybe healthcare for their elderly parents, something like that, I have resources for that. In return, I'm sharing my priorities with them, and they're going to discuss with me whether they're willing to exchange resources. Again, there's no difference with everything we do in life. And so anyway, if you look at this background, it does most likely scream at you, I am a hardcore type A. And if you're going to work in this kind of sales environment, in this kind of world, you're going to fail majestically as that over-the-top type A that I was. Luckily for me, I was surrounded by great Jedi Masters. They had this art form down, and so I made it my life's pursuit to figure out what they were doing. 2001, I got on a behavioral team for counterintelligence, and I helped assess and created strategies for recruitment operations, double agent operations, espionage cases, all those things. And I was fortunate enough then to take over the team in 2010, and I ran it for a good number of years. Did the roughly 90 to 100 assessments every year. And along the way, I started teaching and writing about what I actually was doing. And it actually took that art form that these Jedi Masters had and made it a paint by number so I could share it with others. And what I ultimately discovered was in everything I was doing in life at work, and then in my personal life too, all you were ever doing is strategizing trust. No manipulation, no subterfuge, no deception, because if you're ever even suspected those things, you will not have trust and everything falls apart from there. So this became my life's pursuit to share this with everyone. Next slide. All right, so this book, that my recent one, actually takes place, it starts off with 9/11. I was in New York City during 9/11. Those photos you're seeing right there are shots I actually took. The first one that came up is actually my squad out at Fresh Kills landfill, where we're basically called it fingers and toes do. We were looking for, and you can see in the bottom right there, that is actually the view at Fresh Kills landfill. That is the most immense, overwhelming thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And they plopped us out there and they said, all right, go find evidence and go find people. And they gave you a rake. So that was overwhelming. That shot on the left there, the sun setting, that was actually on 9/11 itself as the sun was setting. And that's actually the site. That is the 7 World Trade there on the right. And that is actually from the east looking west as the sun was setting towards the Hudson on Broadway, because our building was 5 blocks away. So I was very close. And anyway, what I learned during 9/11 was I worked Russians during the time, but now we all shifted and we had to work Middle East. And luckily for me, I had a great confidential human source that shifted. I wound up finding a relative of a world leader from the Middle East. And my job, and I only had a couple years in, was how do I quickly assess this individual that I can trust him in the information he's providing, because we're creating a backdoor channel between countries, and how do I get my management to trust me to allow me to do it? So it was actually, as I started, learn fast or fail, and I felt the weight of the world, but it all worked out very well. Next slide. So I'll give it another click here so I see the title. So this is the personality assessment side. So here's what's really core and simple with human beings. What do we each seek and crave? I said it once already. It's really pretty simple. We're seeking and craving security, prosperity, and wellness for ourselves and our loved ones. And so what does that look like? Part of this is understanding what we seek and crave is we want to be affiliated with meaningful groups or organizations and family, and we want to be valued by the same. And so we're genetically and biologically coded to want these things. And so if you are the individual or company or organization that can demonstrate value and affiliation to your employees, you're going to create a place that people want to work. If you can demonstrate it to your customer base, you're going to create brand recognition that people come back for. And so how do you demonstrate value and how do you demonstrate affiliation to others? It's very, very simple. You do one of these 4 things and the entire conversation shifts from yourself to them. And their brain chemistry is going to reward them chemically for engaging with you, because you're doing things that are saying, this person is great for my survival. And so that's where it's passion. So if you do these things, number 1, seek their thoughts and opinions. 2, talk in terms of their priorities of what's important about them. 3, validate them without judging them. And how do you do that? Have curiosity, because curiosity is beautiful for making that connection with the human beings. And finally, if appropriate, you empower them with choices. And especially, I love the theme of the holiday season this year, because empower them with choices. There's no better place to do it or during a season than Christmas. If anyone remembers, think back to the 1934 Miracle on 34th Street, the old black and white one. And Santa Claus, the real Santa Claus, what did he do? He actually was Santa Claus at Macy's. And one of the things he did was, if Macy's didn't have the toy for the child, what did he tell the parents? He sent them the gimbals. He sent them over here, everywhere. Because what he was actually doing was he was talking in terms of the priorities of the parent, and then he empowered them with choice. And in one scene, you can actually see the woman walking away and talking to Santa Claus's supervisor saying, I didn't regularly do shopping here at Macy's, but this is amazing. I'm going to be a regular Macy's customer from now on, because he talked in terms of her and utilized these things right there. Anyway, next slide. So as I said this already, the goal is to get their brain to reward them chemically for engaging with you. Quick science on this. Harvard University did a fantastic study back in spring of 2012, and they actually wired people's brains up and found that 40% of our day, we're actually sharing our own thoughts and opinions with others, talking about ourselves, talking about what's interesting to us, because we're actually testing the world around us for acceptance. And when we're testing the world around us for acceptance and we're sharing our thoughts and opinions, they found that dopamine is being released. Oxytocin, serotonin in the bloodstream, the pleasure centers in the brain are firing when we're sharing our thoughts and opinions. So when you're the person that is seeking the thoughts and opinions, what's going on with the person? Their brain's rewarding them. So when you do those four things, seeking thoughts and opinions, talking in terms of priorities, validating, and giving choices, their brain is rewarding them for engaging with you. And it's completely truthful. It's completely transparent, because that's one of the keys of this whole thing too. Transparency is gold. Next slide. I'll give it another click here. So I found the key to life later on in my career that was pretty dumbfounded, I didn't understand, was, here's the simple truth. If you can just discover what the priorities of others are, click slide, and then if you become a resource for them achieving it, who wants you on their team? Everyone. It was the most dumbfounding thing. So at the end of my career, I was like, I'm at the end of my career. I'm going to find out what my bosses want. I'm going to see where they see themselves in 5 years. I'm going to see what my coworkers want. And I'm going to do everything I can to help them do their jobs easier. I'm going to help them get promoted. And all of a sudden, the world became an easier place. Because why? I was talking in terms of their priorities, and I was a resource for their success and prosperity, because that's ultimately what we do as human beings to form relationships. We understand the priorities of others, and we do what we can to be a resource for them. And the key here is no expectation of reciprocity, because if you do, then it's about you again. So the focus is always on them. Next slide. So that is a really quick synopsis of understanding behavioral assessment and understanding human beings, what makes them predictable, understanding that we're always going to act in our safety, security, and prosperity. Your job is to figure out what they think it is and help them also maybe discover what it is if they're a little confused about it. So when I wrote my second book, The Code of Trust, which I spoke with NetElixir before about, that was about our behavior that we can do to inspire trust in others. And part of that is those four things I just stated. And so what I really started seeing was that the more I focused on other human beings and did those things to inspire them to want to trust me, I started realizing that, wow, we are actually pretty predictable. We actually will do the same things day in and day out as long as we don't have new outside stimulus. And what I found is the deeper I tried to understand others, the easier it was to predict what they're going to do, as long as I understood what they thought safety and security and prosperity was, and if I had resources. So that's where the impetus for this was. And when people are first thinking about sizing people up, an FBI counterintelligence guy, this is not about manipulation. This is not about trickery. This is about understanding people at a core level, deep as you possibly can. That's why these signs we're going to go through is going to show you, wow, if you understand this, you understand them. The point of it is so you can manage your expectations, so you don't set the bar too high and they fall down here and you get angry or discontent or resentful, because that just is negative emotions that cloud your vision for healthy relationships. It actually helps you set that bar where it should appropriate be, and they're going to either match it or exceed it. And if that for some reason they do fall short of it, you've taken so much time to understand them that something must have happened in their lives, and now you can be a resource for them overcoming it rather than judging them. Next slide. So trust, predictable behavior, and intuition. So click through these so we can get, so here we go. Predictable behavior. That's what this is really about. Oh, sorry, back one. There you go. It's actually rational cognitive thought in observations. So I never, trust is a funny thing because people like to use that word trust. They can trust someone to do something. Well, here's the danger of that. A lot of times we like to trust people because we like people and we like someone, but the two couldn't be further apart sometimes. I mean, think about this. Think about some close friends, some family members that you love and like immensely. What happens? You think you can trust them to do something, but that trust is based on liking, and that could be way far off from what actually happens. I love using my aviation scenario here. I'm a pilot. I'm a commercial pilot, and I do angel flights where I have a volunteer pilot. And I have other friends that are pilots. They can fly planes. I also have great friends that I like very much. Matter of fact, I'm seeing one, it's still with the FBI, hasn't retired yet. He doesn't fly planes. He is one of my closest friends. Can I actually throw him the keys to the plane because I like him and trust him to not kill us? No. It's apples and oranges. So liking is based on a lot of things like similar morals, ethics, beliefs, commonalities, backgrounds. And we actually give ourselves confirmation bias if we like someone, and equally much if we dislike someone. But those are very subjective observations we have with liking, as opposed to trust, actually predictable behavior. We can actually observe what people can and can't do in situations so we can reasonably predict what they're going to do and leave liking aside. That way we can manage our expectations, what we can expect from them while still liking them, so it doesn't interfere. So that's why it's about making those good, strong relationships. Click. So the first sign out of the 6 signs is a sign I like to call vesting. Vesting is really about through their actions, deeds, and words, are they demonstrating that they are vested in your success as much as their own, and do they see the two tied together? Things that like in my career early on, that I saw my management and my bosses were vested in me is they sent me to training. So they knew that they were wanting me to be successful. In my book, my confidential human source, Leo, he knew this game. He'd been a confidential human source for the FBI for 25 years by the time I met him. He was very grandfatherly. He was a teacher, mentor, and guide in many ways to me, even though I was the one in charge of the operations and whatnot. But he was very, very good at what he did, very inventive. But he also knew that in order for him to be a great resource to help protect national security, the only way that was going to happen is if I was successful to my bosses. So he went out of his way because he knew what would be helping me to be successful. So he vested in my success because he saw that tied to his success. So that's great evidence of vesting right there. And so here's just 3 of the 10 tells I have for demonstration of investing. 1, they adjust to you. Their time schedule, their work schedule, they're willing to adjust to you. Next, they call in favors for you. Great people have great relationships. And if someone's willing to call in a relationship and for a favor, for resources on your behalf, especially when you don't request it, that's someone who's vested in you. And finally, one of the things they also do is they tend to share secrets. They're very open with sharing things in their background, things in their lives. And, the closer you are, the deeper these secrets are going to be. Those are just 3 of them. Next. The next one, longevity. Again, they're going to demonstrate this through actions, deeds, and words. So do they see the relationship as long-term? And so this can be for clients. This can be for people that are working for you. This can be for customers. Is this a long-term relationship that you're hoping to build, where you're building brand recognition, or are you actually just a quick quid pro quo? Demonstration of longevity. So right there, the picture I have, that's actually Mr. O'Neill. He was actually the SAC, the special agent in charge of both counterterrorism and counterintelligence in New York. He was the one that was hunting bin Laden in New York City. And actually, he had just retired prior to 9/11 and actually had taken a job as chief of security in the World Trade Center and died at the hands of terrorists on that day. I'm talking about just a tragic ending and poetic, for everything he had done. Anyway, one way he demonstrated longevity was he loved to bring you into his office and have you share with him your goals, your plans, your operations, with everything that was going on. And he wanted to know what was going to be going on in a week, a month, a year, years out. I mean, I worked on operations because he was vested in my longevity that went on for 21 years before I retired. I mean, that's demonstrating massive longevity. Here's some signs of longevity. Some of the tells is they ask you to participate in long-term goals. They pay attention to the traditions and inclusion. Traditions and inclusions are great. We used to go out to happy hours. And so what are we doing now? We're doing virtual happy hours. And what's great about that is look, we're in each other's homes. You are in my dining room here in Fredericksburg, Virginia. So that's one way we establish traditions and inclusions, and we can still do it now virtually. And then they typically use collective pronouns rather than singular pronouns. So they're saying we and us instead of I and me. So those are just some of the signs of longevity. Next. Next slide. Next, reliability. This is the combination of competence as well as diligence. And competence being on the resume, they say they can do certain things. Out of their mouths, they say they can do certain things. Do they actually have the skills to actually follow through on the things they say? And second part of that is, do they actually have the diligence to actually do it? Just because they have a skill doesn't mean they're actually going to perform at the level that you expect them to. So reliability is a combination of the two. I got a picture of a drone there because one of the stories I use, and this is literally right before I retired, there was an FBI guy that was putting a drone conference together. He was technically exceptionally competent. His reliability with technology was fantastic. He had both competence and diligence on the technology side. What he lacked was reliability on interpersonal relationships in organizing people part of the conference. And so he actually had some competence in reaching out and touching people, but he didn't have the follow through to bring people in. And actually he insulted one of my confidential human sources that was going to be a source for this thing. And I had to put some band-aids on things and mend relationships because he wasn't reliable in this one lane. And that's what's really key to remember. Just because someone can't perform in this lane right here that I'm assessing doesn't mean they're not good here, here, and here. I'm very, very singular when I'm thinking in terms of the person, because just because you fall short here, well, that's on me for not assessing you properly. You can be successful over here, be successful over here. It can be really good, and I can still maintain that great relationship. I mean, this guy is a fantastic guy. He was just in a wrong lane. And so just knowing that was important. So some signs that they are reliable and demonstrate competence and diligence, really simple. They speak with specifics. They don't like vague words and vague ideas. No, they're very specific. They accept responsibility both for strengths as well as for failures. They don't push the blame off on someone else. They own it. Is also a good sign of self-awareness, which I love. And finally, they're transparent with their shortcomings. Again, great self-awareness. I'd rather have someone that can build relationships, that can be transparent and honest with me about their shortcomings, because I can teach anyone to flip a switch. But that kind of self-awareness, that's what I love to see, and that's what I'm going to go with. Next. Actions. I came up with this one because it's really simple. What's the definition? People like to say of crazy, doing the same thing 2 or 3 times and expecting a different result. That's what this is. So I'm looking for past patterns and key behaviors. Nation states are extremely predictable. I can guarantee you what Russia's going to do all the time. I can guarantee what Iran's going to do every time. Basically, anything that we do, they're going to do the opposite. Extremely predictable because it's a past pattern to key behavior. Also, other actions that I'm looking for signs is they fulfill requests quickly. They don't procrastinate. Their version of events doesn't change over time, so they're not trying to give you a snowball job. They're actually being very accurate consistently. And finally, they live up to their obligations. They can actually do what they say and perform it, and they can do that consistently well. Next. And next one is language, or fifth one. In languages, remember what I said before? What are the 4 things that you always want to demonstrate to others? Demonstrate value and affiliation. They're right there. You're going to seek those thoughts and opinions. Talk in terms of their priorities, validate them, give them choices. Well, when I'm looking for a language, I'm looking for them to use that with me. That's what I'm looking for. Next. And finally, the last sign is stability, and that is emotional stability. Under times of stress and duress, do people maintain great cognitive thought, or do they become irrational and off the rails? Again, people will always generally respond to stress immediately, but how fast can they come back to center and start thinking rationally again? So what I'm looking for, my top 3 here is they're hard to scare. and they don't get shocked or surprised. They can maintain good thought. They're impeccably rational. They're always thinking in terms of, all right, what am I trying to achieve? And is what I'm doing helping and hindering that? And then basically, again, let's go to self-awareness. They're happy with themselves. They're not insecure. So those are the key things I'm looking for stability, because these are great people you want to work with. Next. Speed reading and congruence. This is really pretty simple. I'm going to hit this fast because it doesn't take long. What I'm looking for, if I'm looking for a good speed read of a quick trust and predictability, I'm looking for that language, because I can listen and read language immediately. I'm looking for that focus to be on me on those 4 things. Now I'm going to look for nonverbal congruence. I want to see high comfort displays when they're doing it. I want to see a smile. I want to see some head tilt exposing carotid artery. I want to see some ventral displays with palms up, eyebrow, all this high comfort stuff while they're making the conversation about me makes for great congruence, as opposed to scrunching in, eyebrow compression, lip compression, pulling back as they're saying it's about me. No, it's not. So I'm looking for that great congruence. And then most importantly, I'm always seeking transparency for things I don't understand. And if you're being transparent, if I don't understand something and you're allowed the clarity, the likelihood of trust and predictable behavior is pretty high and pretty rapid. Next. My key takeaways. Let's go through them. Number 1, trust and healthy relationships are the key to moving forward with absolutely any objective you want. Nothing will happen without great relationships and trust. Next, demonstrating affiliation and value to others through those 4 things is the key to those good, healthy relationships. Sizing people up, the things we talked about, is about predicting behavior for a deeper understanding of others, not for any manipulative game. It's about to understand at that deep level so you can make that connection, you can manage your expectations, and you can reasonably expect what people are going to do, and you can be there for them if they do fall short. And then finally, each sign of these 6 signs is important, but they're not absolute. Come up with your own understanding of what you want to tolerate and roll forward. You don't need all 6. If I got 1 or 2 tells of one sign and that's fine with me, then I'm going to roll forward with it. And I'm going to keep looking for more. And if I start seeing negative ones, well, that actually is good for me to understand as well. Next. And finally, the All About Me slide. If you want more, before we take some questions, this is where you find me, peopleformula.com. And I have great, robust online training. And all my training ends with great counseling, mentoring session one-on-one with me. With that, Heather, I think I maintained my time frame for you. Let's hit some questions.
Hi, Robin.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for the presentation. So I just have a few questions that are coming in. So give me 1 second.
You betcha.
Okay. So you had a point that whenever untrustworthiness, sorry, give me 1 second.
You bet.
So if you made a point that if there's no trust or a healthy relationship, which are key to moving forward, how would you pivot when you see someone's being untrustworthy and not responding to your actions?
So that really depends. For one thing, if they're untrustworthy, you now have a baseline of what their normal is. And so if baseline of normal is that they're predictable, that they're not trustworthy, well, now if they're an employee, well, now you have to talk about conditions of employment. And part of transparency when you have someone working for you is a condition of employment. If you're doing it with family members, I actually had this come up where someone always says they're going to do something, but they never follow through on it. I think it's pretty common with a lot of people. The thing I said, one of the best things you can say is, do you like disappointing me? And do you like not having me being able to count on you? Because in other words, you made it about them. You're not judging it. You're making an observation because of what you consistently perform. And you can do this at work too. Because you say you're going to do something and you never follow through on it, I can't trust you. Is that what you want? And if you do want me to trust you, what can you show me to show me you can? So those are 2 quick things you can do to deal with that. And
do you think trustworthiness varies among different age demographics?
I think so trustworthiness comes down again to predictable behavior, and predictable behavior, it's the same with every human being at every age. It really is, because it's never what you at where your station in life is placing on someone, because because that puts you in a very judgmental way. Because if you're thinking the world ought to roll like you, that's about you. Understanding others, it makes it very predictable, because we are all hardwired for safety, security, and prosperity. The key is everyone sees that very differently from their demographic, their ethnicity, their age, their gender. I mean, the things my son and daughter do in terms of those things is different than I'm doing at my stage in life in terms of those things. My job is to understand what they think it is, and then I can now predict what they're going to do. pretty consistently, like my daughter, just before we went on, her car battery died because she hasn't gone in to get the car inspected past 2 months. I could predict that was going to happen because she consistently blows off the car. And why? That's where she's at in life, and that's predictable behavior. And so do I get exasperated at it? No, I just sat here and said, that's why we have AAA, because I knew you were going to do that anyway.
That's that. All right. So I just have one final question for you. What tips do you have for assessing people virtually via web conferencing? And how can we evaluate body language feedback from only the shoulders up?
Believe it or not, first of all, assessing people remotely, virtually right now, to me is exactly the same. I have been doing this way a lot for a long time. Matter of fact, in my training, I actually show email exchanges, how you can assess using emails and how you can use the code of trust and this phraseology in emails. Now, assessing body language, when I first started on my behavioral team, I was a nonverbal expert. I was trained by Joe Navarro, which is a world-renowned nonverbal expert, a retired FBI agent. And so his thing was he's always doing tons of interviews, and he's top of the head to the tip of the toes, the body's saying everything. And he did lots of espionage interviews and lots of terrorism interviews. And my career shifted from doing purely interviews to actually recruiting and building relationships / sales. And so I had to listen a lot more to words and content and develop trust. And you can't watch the body and listen at the same time. I don't know a human being that can do it. So what I'm doing is I'm always just looking at this. And so it's very easy to see in Zoom calls. And right now, everyone, like you can see, I'm very animated with my hands. I use a lot of palms up ventral displays because it's a natural part of who I am. Again, even there, eyebrow elevation, all these things. I have high comfort displays right here from where you're observing. And if all of a sudden you're having a conversation with someone and you're on Zoom and you start seeing this, well, now we have stress. Now we have a little confrontation. Now we see someone because they got eyebrow compression, lip compression, they're leaning in, maybe a little sneering there, just a little disgust coming out. That is not a good sign. This is a good sign. So in other words, you can see a lot in the virtual world, and I wouldn't use that as a hindrance at all. I haven't. Good question.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Robin. It was really a pleasure seeing you again. You're a great friend of NetElixir, so I'm sure I'll see you again soon. But next, we're going to move on to the next segment of the event. So if we can see the next slides.
There you go.
There we go. So I just want to thank all of our speakers, our partners, and our attendees that have joined from across the globe and that have helped retailers connect the dots and provide insights, ideas, and inspiration for the upcoming holiday. As we move to the next slide, I just wanted to share that our goal for this event was built to help retailers, but also to support the education of young girls. We had a goal to raise 10,000K, but we were able to raise $3,308. So every bit counts. So thank you so much to those of you that donated. If you're interested in donating, please go to the udon-trust.org/donate. You can also submit your donations and make your contributions on this landing page below. So next, to all of our attendees today, I wanted to let you know that we're sending out a quick survey. I'd really appreciate your feedback. I know we had a couple of technical difficulties, but there has been crazy weather. So I'm glad that you guys stuck with us. So you can express your interest in the holiday consultation also using that survey. So be sure to check that out. That will appear in the comment box. All right, so next, on our next slide, NetElixir has a couple exciting announcements. As Edane mentioned, but Lenovo, we've been with them for 10 years as a partnership. So NetElixir is thrilled to announce that we'll continue bringing you one dot closer to successful holiday strategy with our Connecting the Dots Holiday Readiness Summit for Retailers webinar series. So one of our first and which is very special to us, as I mentioned, will not only be celebrating 10 years on that day, but we'll be joined by Lenovo, who is Ajit Devadasan. So you can sign up for this webinar now at netelixir.com/webinars and join NetElixir and our retail leaders as we continue to connect the dots. All right, and then as you heard throughout this presentation, NetElixir has teamed up with Google and Microsoft to offer our retailers here today 20 free personalized consultations. Space is limited, so we do not want you to wait to sign up. Go to the site right now and sign up right away. What you'll get is a one-on-one consultation with NetElixir holiday specialist, plus a Google or a Microsoft expert. You'll get a customized holiday search marketing blueprint and a comprehensive preview of the holiday season specific to your industry. So if you're interested in receiving this valuable information, go to netelixir.com/holidays. All right, and last but certainly not least, NetElixir has released our Along the Road to Recovery ebook. A free download is available on this brand live page. If you can see the downloads by the agenda and the event overview. So please be sure to download your free ebook to see how the coronavirus pandemic has reshaped e-commerce and what impact these trends will have as we enter the holiday season. All right, so that concludes our event. Thank you again for everyone attending Connecting the Dots Holiday Readiness Summit for Retailers, hosted by NetElixir. We look forward to working with you this holiday. Stay well, and I hope everyone has a great weekend. Thank you.